What's up, everyone? We're talking this week with Pete Mastro from Tampa Lax Report, and we're starting now. All right, everybody. I thought it'd be a little bit fun. This segment is actually going to be part of the larger segment on This Week in Lacrosse. That's going to be in episode 8, depending on when you're watching this. But I thought we'd actually break it out into the region report, just in case the only thing you care about is the Tampa Lacrosse area. So we're going to get into the interview with Pete, where he tells us about the storylines that are happening in the Tampa area this year, in addition to some surprise teams. And of course, we're going to talk about some of the players that are very special out of the Tampa Bay area. So we're going to get into that right now. All right, I'm here with Pete Mastro from Tampa Lax Report. He's one of the actually founding members of Tampa Lax Report down in Florida. Pete, thank you for coming on today.
Oh, Mike, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to finally meet and speak with you. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time, and we all follow you very closely.
Yeah, I can say ditto to that, too, because I followed you guys for a number of years, and I literally looked on. I was like, I can't believe I've never had any of those guys on, a video or a podcast. So I was working to rectify that situation. I was like, it's way past due, so thank you again. So for anybody who may know, I mean, obviously it seems pretty obvious with the name Tampa Lax Report, but why don't you tell people a little bit about the site and what you guys cover?
Yeah, we cover kind of the greater Tampa area. So it includes all the way from North Tampa to actually the Bradenton area where IMG is. Okay. So, it's a little bigger than Tampa. So we cover districts 14 through 17. So okay. that covers that whole area there. So we're kind of like the west central coast of Florida, from us to basically just above Naples. Okay. Really is what our area is. Okay. So it's a pretty big area. It's a little bigger than just Tampa. Right. But it's been fun to get down to Bradenton. That's about a 45-minute drive for us to get down and see some of those games. We've caught a few of them, so it's been good.
Yeah. And what year is this for you guys now?
Well, this is only our second year. We started last year, and we started in the summer of 2017, and we were able to cover the whole 18 season, and once it was hard to get a lot of teams to kind of know what we did, and once they started coming on board and seeing what we did, they started contributing more. So This year has been a lot better than last year. So a lot more teams are sending us stats and sending us information about their schedules and their players and their coaches, and it's been a lot easier to communicate.
Yeah, always takes a little bit of time to build that trust with teams and coaches and stuff like that. And they're like, oh no, not to know they're not just one and done. They're not just here and then going to be gone. Well, make it worth their while.
The biggest obstacle we have is some teams think that we're scouting. It's basically a scatter report for another team. Right. But really, we just want to give recognition to the players in the area, because the reason we started it is there's no coverage for lacrosse here, absolutely none in the Tampa area. Yeah. Bradenton has some; they have the paper still covered, but there's no paper in Tampa that covers any lacrosse. You would never know there was a lacrosse game played here. They don't cover the colleges here. UT's right in our backyard. You don't hear anything about that. And it's a shame. And we've seen that for the years that we've been here. And we've had to rely on Florida Lacrosse News with Lee to get any kind of coverage. And I was a big, consumer of Lee's stuff, because I was so hungry when the game started for me, many years ago when my nephew and my son started playing. I just wanted to learn about the areas and the teams that were good in the area, and he was one of the great resources we had to be able to learn about a lot of the teams. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously now I've seen, like, it seems like since you guys have come along, and I know there's a few at least Twitter accounts like that kind of are covering, I think Lax North Florida. I probably have their handle wrong, but they do got a good job at the up north area of at least tweeting this stuff. But it's kind of nice to see, especially with the growth of lacrosse in Florida. Like, there's so much talent down there now that it deserves more coverage. It deserves more people like you guys that are doing the work and, getting the recognition for the kids and the teams.
Yeah, I mean, we focus on our area so we're able to see the teams here, and focus on the districts that we're in, and we know the players, we know the coaches. We do a player watch list like you. You inspired us to do that. So we just do a top 25, and it's always anxiously awaited, so it's good. This is the second year we've done it. We've learned a lot over the time to make sure that we really do a lot of research on the teams and players and see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
We do a senior all-star game as well.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is very well received, and we're going to be doing one again this year. But those are some of the things we enjoy doing, because we just want to give recognition to the players that have been, and we also cover girls too, which a lot of sites don't.
Yeah.
And so we have the girls side as well, and if you think that the boys get minimal coverage, the girls get none.
Yeah.
So it's good to be able to see some of the top female players in the area too, because we have a lot. We have a few going to one going to Florida from Plant, Lexi Ashby, and you got Grace Hobson from Newsom going to University of Jacksonville. We have some really talented players down here.
Yeah. Well, for the purpose of this conversation, since I only cover boys, I am guilty of just that. Like, we're just going to focus on the boys side. Right. But, you kind of mentioned given recognition. What's been the big maybe storyline or big team that's out of the Tampa area this year?
Well, the team that's been the hot team for the last 2 years is Cardinal Mooney. That team is just on fire. They are loaded, and I mean loaded with talent. They had just mowed through their district. Their district this year, they added, I think, about 4 teams to their district 17. It's grown by 4 teams.
Wow.
They're newer programs, as much as Coach Wagner and Coach Donovan are frustrated because they wanted to add more teams like St. Andrews and St. Thomas Aquinas. They had to accommodate their district schedule first.
Yeah.
They're only allowed so many games. But they are probably going to be back in what we feel really strongly. They're going to be back in the Elite Eight where they were last year, and hopefully they can get to the state finals this year.
Yeah. And what about some of the other teams? Because obviously I know after following it, because through you guys last season, like there's a deep area. Like there's several teams out there and several players. So who's a couple other teams that have notable this year?
Well, in this year, District 16, we have, you have Jesuit, Berkeley, and Plant. Those are the 3 teams that they're just a meat grinder. Those 3 teams beat each other up through district play, and any of those 3 teams can get through, and they're pretty good. Actually, Jesuit's going to play Cardinal Mooney Friday night, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. Jesuit's been nicked up a little bit this year with some injuries, but they're getting players back at the right time. They had just played Plant the other night at Plant and won pretty handily, but I think Plant had a lot of spring break rust on them. That's the only problem with Florida lacrosse is our spring break hits us kind of like right in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
The public schools aren't allowed to practice at all. They're not allowed to play anyone, and they come back after a week, and sometimes it takes them a few games to get back to where they were at from when they left. So some of the other surprise teams though from district 16 is Alonzo. That's a team that's not a non-traditional really lacrosse school. They actually have 2 commits this year. They have a kid named Jake McDivitt that's going to Florida Southern. He's a LSM, and they also have a goalkeeper, Grant Benefield, that's going to Huntington. And this is the first year they're going to get into district playoffs. They won last night to clinch it against Tampa Catholic. I think they won 8-5. But that Tampa Catholic's usually the 4th team in District 16, but this year they got knocked out by Alonzo. So it's nice to see a fresh team in there and the growth in the area of some of these teams that are non-traditional schools coming up and growing.
Yeah. And
then you have District 14. District 14 has been dominated by a school named Newsom for years. Coach Blackburn has got his 100th win this season, actually, but he's won 5 straight district titles. And usually they just mow through that district, which they pretty much done this year as well. But there's some teams that are getting better in that's actually challenging. Bloomingdale is one of them.
Yeah.
They took 2nd seed this year. They have some players that are they're you see a lot of them playing. More club players are playing for that team. They're growing. They actually have a winning record this year. They'll give them a little competition this year to see if they can contend for District 14.
Yeah.
And then we have District 15, which is there's a team. Steinbrenner is the top seed in the district. Usually that was only a 2-team district. Again, there's 2 non-traditional teams that are coming up. There's a team that just came up out of nowhere last year, Wiregrass, that was undefeated the whole season, and they actually played Steinbrenner last week. It's a game we covered, and it was a fantastic game, and Steinbrenner ended up pulling it out, but Steinbrenner beat them by 2 goals at the last 2 minutes, or no, a goal, I'm sorry, at the last minute of the game. But they have some fantastic talent there. None that are committed, which surprisingly, because they have some really good athletes, but there's none committed, none even on your watch list, which was kind of surprising because they have some talent, but they look like the team to beat there. And tonight, actually, for the 4th spot, which is again usually a non-contested, it's usually District 15 is usually a 2-team district. This year they have 4 teams, and for the 4th spot, there's a new team called Sun Lake that just came into district play this year. They have a couple players that you're going to hear from soon. A kid named Ryan Furlong. He was a transplant from New Jersey. And there's another kid named Jacob Swartz that should be on your watch list. Another kid that's really good. But they are playing as we speak for the 4th spot in District 15 right now. They're playing against Sickles. Okay. Which is having a little bit of a down year, but if they win, they clinch a 4th spot.
Yeah.
So we'll know probably in another hour or so how that goes. It'd be neat to see. It's always nice to see the newer teams come up and play, but you can see the growth in the areas. We are getting more players, and you're starting to see a lot more of these players play club and travel teams and get better.
Yeah. And you might have mentioned a couple of them, but is there a team in particular, or maybe 2 teams that have really kind of surprised you this year that maybe you guys weren't either? You mentioned like a Sun Lake or a school like that. Is it those maybe some of the more surprising teams that you were maybe not expecting? Maybe it was one of those like, oh, they'll be good soon, but you weren't expecting it maybe this year.
Yeah, Sun Lake for sure is one, because Sun Lake has a program, and the coach that's there, JB. He's fantastic. He's new to lacrosse. He's more of a football coach by nature, but he's been doing a fantastic job with those boys, getting them motivated to play and actually believe that they can compete. They haven't really won much any of the years they played, and this year they have a winning record, and they're going to be the first year in to be able to play for district play. They're possibly going to get in, which is really a surprise, with all the other teams that have been in there for a while, like Sickles.
Yeah.
And some of the teams that actually were Sickles actually won the district last year, and this year they've had a lot of players graduate. They're having a little bit of a down year. Couple things that happened to them, but they're still fighting. But I don't know. It might be Sun Lake's year this year, so we'll see.
Yeah, you never. And obviously, it's one of those things you never really know. Like, I mean, Cardinal Mooney looks like the favorite to get out. But I think we've seen in past years, I mean, every now and then the team just hot at the right time. Like you mentioned, the Tampa Jesuit getting players back. I mean, you just never know. I mean, so much of what happens in the playoffs can just reset an entire season, and someone gets hot, and that can be the difference maker.
It's one game when you get to districts, and it's that pressure builds, and even the teams that are favored sometimes get a little bit tight. They get a little nervous.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be the case with Cardinal Mooney based on how they've beaten the teams in their district. So I'm pretty confident that they should get through. But the other districts are going to be contended, so it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, we're getting ready. We're almost at the end of our season. Districts actually start April 16th and 18th. I mean, we're almost done.
Yeah, that's always the crazy thing is when obviously I start, because since I kind of cover everything, my season starts usually about beginning of February because Texas and some of the areas, and you guys start early, and then I think. I'm not sure, but I think Massachusetts either just started or may still be a few days away, and you guys are heading into your playoffs. So it's that weird dynamic where some parts of the country, they haven't even started their year yet, and you guys are kind of starting to wind down.
Florida last year pushed their season back 2 weeks. It used to start even earlier.
Yeah.
We were basically done in April 2 years ago. The first week of April was districts. So last year was the first year they pushed it to mid-April. But they had traditionally we had started on the day after Martin Luther King Day was the start of our season. It was the first day of practice. So now it's the last day of, I think it started January 28th, 29th was our first day of practice.
Yeah, that's kind of.
And games start mid-February, and then it's just a wild ride to the end.
Yeah, it really is. So I know you've already mentioned a few players, but who are some of the players out of your area that maybe people will recognize? I mean, obviously it's one of those things like the people who follow recruiting probably know, but like for some of the other people, like who are some of the big names that people will be like, oh, I know them?
Well, some of the top players in the area, like MJ McMahon from Cardinal Mooney, he's going to Utah. You got Ryan Ketchum from Mooney, he's going to Mercer. We have another guy, Alec Frank, who's the face-off guy for Cardinal Mooney. Another one, he's going to University of Jacksonville. They're all 2019, so they're all seniors this year. You have J.P. Jackson, who's a 2020 that's going to Boston University from Cardinal Mooney. And you have Nick Petroselli, he's going to Lenore Ryan. He's also a senior, but he's a goalkeeper for Cardinal Mooney. So they have some players that are going to some pretty decent D1 schools. You also have a couple Plant kids that are going. There's a kid named Drew Mates is going to Mercer. You got a D3 kid from Salisbury. His name is Kenny Lane from Jesuit. You got one of the kids that I mentioned before, Jake McDivitt from Alonzo going to Florida Southern, and you got Grant Benefield going to Huntington. So those are some of the ones. But Cardinal Mooney has, honestly, there's a couple kids on your player watch list that I think that are going to go. They're going to be going to some really good programs. Christian Loreno is one of them. Yeah. He's when he first came on as a freshman, he's been starting since he's been a freshman for Cardinal Mooney. This is his sophomore year, but the kid must have grown a foot. He's like 6'3" now. He's huge, and he's a very talented player. So it's going to be fun to see where he lands, because it's going to be interesting. He's very talented. He's playing with a talented group of players right now. Yeah, but I think he's going to be the man for them in the coming years.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to watch the Mooney in general, but just the playoffs, because I think just from hearing you talk, like you're seeing more and more teams kind of get spread out, and when you think about it, like Florida's such a big state, and you guys overall can such a small area, and you just look at the list of players that are going to college just out of that small area, and then you think about like, oh, what about the rest of the state? I mean, we haven't even talked about the St. Andrews and the Ponte Vedras and the Lake Mary and Bishop Moore and Jupe and like all those other schools. Like it's just amazing how much talent.
It's nice to see more players wanting to play at the next level here and getting the opportunities to play, because they're getting seen now. Yeah, you're seeing some of these players get out and get to the camps and know what to do for the coaches to see them and get recruited and actually want to do it. And we've had traditional players come through here before. We haven't had many D1 players out of the Tampa area. We have just a few. Stefano Mastro, my nephew, plays for the Mount. He was recruited in 2015. You have, I can't remember his name now. Taylor Bennett plays for Army right now, came from Plant. Yeah. So you have a couple Division I players that are out there, and they just led the way, and you see more coming. You see the talent and how much growth the area and how much more teams are coming in now to play, and how many more players are getting exposed, and it's been fun. I mean, last year we had a recruiting camp right here in Tampa with some of the top coaches in Division I. You had Toomey and Hopkins coach. How do I forget his name? Sorry.
It's always the easy ones you forget.
They were here right in our backyard, so it was awesome to see them here and be able to see some of our talent, and some of the talented players from around the country came down to play. So it was fun. We were there watching it, so it was great. Really talented group of players that were out there.
Yeah, it seems like one of those things. Like once the college coaches, like once a couple guys gets it rolling, like everybody else starts to take notice. And that's when it takes those first few to come out and to do pretty well in college, and so coaches know like, all right, there's some talent there, but once that secret's out, there's no putting it back in. So
Jesuit also had Jake Lemon that graduated last year, that's at Kinesis now, so he's he's doing really well. Oh, and Brad Baker too. Even though he's a transplant from up north, we're gonna take him as a Florida
He
kid.
finished at Tampa. That's right.
Yes.
Even though he started in Long Island, he finished in Tampa.
He's in Holy Cross now, so he's doing really well as well. So we're glad to take him as a Florida player. I'm sure his dad will appreciate that.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Pete. Well, I can't thank you enough. I hope everybody's enjoyed this segment and be able to get a little bit more information out of the Tampa area. So let everybody know where they can find you online if they want to follow your guys' work.
Yeah, just go to tampalaxreport.com. That's our website, and we're on Twitter as Tampa Lax Report as well. We tweet a lot more than we do anything else. I mean, that's our main way to communicate. So it's been great. But we post a game of the week every week, so you can see some of the local talent that's here. James Broom does a terrific job recording them, and you can catch a lot of the players in the highlights. He makes almost a highlight reel for some of these guys, which has been awesome. But it's fun because you get a real feel for the game because we tape the whole thing and he comments on it and then puts everything up at the end. But we do the girls as well as the boys. But that's one way to kind of see what's going on down here. So.
All right, Pete. Thank you again. Thank you so much for being on.
Well, thanks for having us, Mike. We appreciate it. All right, take care.
All right, you too. All right, everybody. I hope you really enjoyed that segment with Pete Mastro from Tampa Lax Report. Please do give them a follow on Twitter. Definitely check out their website. They are doing fantastic work down in the Tampa area, getting recognition for the players and teams out of that area. And while you're here, please hit that subscribe button and please hit that bell because that is going to let you know when we do new shows. Everybody seems to like this kind of where we break out the region segments, so we're going to do a little bit more of that. Please look forward to more in the future. But for now, have a week.